Hey, what is going on, guys? This is SME Reviews, and today we're taking a look at the newest studio album from Jack White, Boarding House Reach. Let's get to it. Jack White, obviously most famously from the White Stripes, also a very popular solo career, a couple other bands that he was in. Very popular artist, or at least has been around in the music scene a lot, while each project may have not been extremely popular, or at least very well liked, and usually pretty well critically acclaimed. He's done pretty well for himself and made a pretty good name for himself, and even in his solo career, as I said, it's done pretty well. This is his third studio album as a solo artist, and it's kind of good. It's a weird one. Boarding House Reach definitely is experimental, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind experimental, but this is absolutely an album. There is not really more than maybe 2 or 3 songs that you could just listen to by themselves. It's mainly an album that you want to listen to all together, because there's 3 songs maybe that are mainly instrumental. Maybe at the last minute there's a couple words. There's a lot of spoken word songs, I think 3, possibly 4, but I believe 3. And there's a lot of those kind of songs in there. And it just really, while there's nothing wrong with that, I think that the art of the album is important. I think that making an album that all fits together is an important aspect to making music. And so I don't really have a problem with it, but it does come with all the problems that come with that kind of songwriting. None of this can be dissected or taken from the album. It all has to be listened to as an album. There are some songs like Connected by Love, Over and Over and Over and Over. All of those 2 are some that could be taken out and they would be fine. But for the most part, most of these songs kind of only fit in the context of the album. Never would I just think, I want to listen to this spoken word Jack White song. It just would never come to that. Never once would I have felt that. And even the instrumentals, while I have a ton of respect for them, they're very well crafted and very well designed. I just don't really have any reason to listen to them because I kind of do get a little repetitive. And even then, I don't really mind instrumentals, but I feel like they work best in the context of the album. They never really work as an individual song. Rarely do I think many people listen to just an instrumental track, unless it's some really good instrumental track, like Led Zeppelin or something, or Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd had excellent, very experimental, and mainly instrumental tracks, and those are fine. But for the most part, no one really just listens to instrumental tracks. It's just not what a lot of people lean towards. And some people will, but even then, even the people that really like instrumental tracks probably don't just seek them out constantly. And if they do really like instrumental tracks, these aren't quite good enough to be the ones that they want to listen to. So, in the context of the album, those instrumental tracks are great. As I said, they're very well put together, and there's a lot of talent there. But it just never would be something that could be taken away from the album. You can never just put some of these songs in a playlist. There's a couple songs, as I said, but for the most part, they all need to be listened to together as an album, not as individual songs, which I'm sure was Jack White's intention. And despite me sounding probably kind of negative on it, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It just comes with the problems that would come with that kind of style of writing. But I have a ton of respect for just making an album. I think the art of the album is important. That being said, it just, as I said, there's not too much takeaway, and it does a lot of things good, but not a lot great. I think that's its biggest problem. For the people that love just tracks that are very instrumental, these tracks are alright. There's nothing wrong with them, but they don't do enough. They're not progressive enough. They're not interesting enough. There's Yes could do experimental tracks excellently. A lot of progressive rock bands do that excellently. While these are good, I definitely think they could get old. So I think that for people that really like experimental tracks, these kind of are cut off. Spoken word tracks honestly only fit in context to the album, in my opinion. I don't feel like anyone really would seek those out individually. While they're alright lyrically, I actually do like some of them. They're kind of fun and interesting. I just would never once seek out any of those purely spoken word tracks. And then the actual more typical song format, chorus, verse, actual what people are used to in a normal song, it just doesn't stand out enough. They're fine. Connected by Love is honestly a great track with a great organ solo, and I love it. And I think that there's a lot of really good organ in here, actually. But even then, it gets kind of repetitive. It's a little long sometimes, some of the songs. Not Connected by Love, I honestly think that is probably one of the better tracks. It is probably the most radio-friendly track, but I'm not saying that because it's radio-friendly. I think it really is actually good. That solo is really catchy. I think that the lyrical content is fine. It's better than a lot of things that I listen to. I think that it's alright, and it's actually cohesive and stays together as a song. It's not just a 44-minute song, which is how long the album is. It is its own song, and so I actually do like it, because for me, I do prefer individual. If I was talking about an individual song, I'd prefer it to be a more traditional structure of song. Not that it needs to be a specific style like verse and chorus, just I prefer it to not just be purely instrumental, that kind of thing. So that's why that is one of my favorite tracks. But it is actually a really good track, but even then, the ones that are still like that over and over and over and over, yes, that many times, it just, there's always something holding it back. Honestly, it's the female vocals in that song. It's just kind of weird and off. I don't really like the female vocals. I think it would actually be a really good track, because Jack White really gives a powerful delivery with his vocals, and it really is punchy, except for those female vocals just kind of sound way out there. I feel like that style of female vocal, and it seems like it only happens with females, not because of the gender or anything, obviously. It's just that it seems like people want to utilize that to be extremely dramatic, and it just gets on my nerves sometimes. There was another album I reviewed recently that did the same thing. But it's not like it's terrible, it's alright. It's just that style that for some reason some people are wanting to do recently. Like I said, there was another song just a while back that I said the same thing. I can't even remember what it was. But it was just weird, way over dramatic sounding female vocals, and it just didn't really work. But that being said, I still really do like this album. There's still a lot here. It's talented. He's a decent singer, honestly. It's different, but I still like it. Lyrics are good. It's a pretty sound album. There's nothing bad about it, honestly. It just doesn't have enough to it to make any of it worth revisiting. And especially what I was saying, like, this isn't a concept album, so listening to the whole album and making this an album instead of just individual songs kind of hurts it, because there's nothing that they don't really connect together too well, especially with the extreme mix of genres where we get anything from kind of hip-hop to garage rock to blues rock, which are his more traditional styles, and then we get a little more southern sounding songs. There's a lot. There really is. And so it just doesn't really fit together as an album too well, if you taking those factors into account, even though it clearly is an album. It's a very weird one. It's a weird one to review, a hard one to review, just because it's not terrible, but it's just not that great. And it's not that I don't mind experimental. I actually really like it, and sometimes that experimental works. It just doesn't always. Connected by Love, Humoresque, Why Walk a Dog, over and over and over, and even What's Done Is Done. Honestly, those are some decent tracks, because they do kind of stay self-contained, but yet it can lend itself to a bigger style. It works with the album. They all sound good, but they're still self-contained, and they actually are good at what they do. I mean, even though I did criticize the vocals on Over and Over and Over, I still like it, honestly. It's still catchy. It's still really punchy. It just sometimes the vocals kind of get a little too dramatic, and I'm not loving it, but that being said, it's still decent. Those are probably some of the best tracks, but then the spoken word tracks, I could live without them. Not that they're bad in the album, I'm not counting off for it, it's just never going to want to revisit those. And then some like Respect Commander or Corporation, again, good songs, good technically sound songs, but I just don't have much of a reason to want to revisit them. If I wanted just purely instrumental tracks, I'd go to more progressive music or more psychedelic than this. It just doesn't do, it doesn't exemplify any great characteristics. It's not extremely proficient in anything. It's good, but it's not great at anything. And that's its problem. That honestly is the biggest problem with this album. Still a great album, though, and that's why I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. What did you guys think of this album? Please let me know down below. Obviously, I actually did like it. I know my review probably sounded much more negative than I actually am on it. I just had to point out the clear flaws in this, because even just looking at some other people's reviews, it seems like these flaws aren't really being... there's no light being shown on them. So I wanted to point those out, but what did you guys think? Please let me know. Besides that, is there anything I can do to improve my video quality, or any upcoming albums that you'd like me to check out? Please let me know. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys later.